Having two elite wide receivers is one of the biggest keys to winning your fantasy football league. Today, we're giving our top 24 receiver rankings for 2026. And if you can draft two of these elite receivers, you'll be setting yourself up for a championship run. All right, so our receiver one overall is Jamar Chase. And we've kind of talked about him briefly in the top 24 video. But back in 2024, with Joe Burrow's last fully healthy season, he won the Triple Crown. He averaged 23.71 points per game. We've talked about with Flacco, he averaged 21.5 points last year. So he's a highest ceiling in the league, great floor. I'm not worried about him all. He's easily my 101 this year for receivers. All right, our number two overall receiver, we have Puka Nacua here.
Puka was the overall wide receiver one in fantasy last year. He averaged 23.44 points per game, 100 yards per game, and also averaged 3.78 yards per route run. It's understandable if you like Puka more than Chase, but we realize that there's way more risk taking Puka here. Stafford is now 38 years old and had back problems last year and can hurt himself any moment. Puka also has dealt with a handful of off-the-field issues and a couple injuries, but there's slightly more risk with Puka than there is with Chase, but they do have they have a similar ceiling, but the risk is why, as a group, we lean towards Chase at one.
All right, third overall receiver, we have Jaxon Smith-Njigba.
Smith-Njigba with over 1,700 yards last year. No new target competition coming in next year, but the OC change, Clint Kubiak gone. I think it hurts him a little bit, but you know what he can do. He's still an elite talent, and he's our third receiver.
All right, so that was the end of S tier. And our first player in A tier, we have Amon Ra St. Brown. He's been Mr. Consistent over the last 4 years or so, or 3 years. So he's been a top four receiver these last 3 years. And I'm not worried about the new OC and Petsing. I know people were worried last year with Johnny Morton. It didn't seem to matter because he was the receiver four. And it didn't matter. He was the same player once Campbell took over for the play calls, too. I do think his ceiling just a little bit capped because I just think Jahmyr Gibbs is that good of a player, and he's gonna have so many points this year. And I don't think he can be the number one overall receiver, which is why he's a tier below these guys. But he's pretty much a lock for a top five if he's healthy. And he's gonna battle through those injuries for you. Number five, we have Justin Jefferson here.
I mean, Justin Jefferson is still a top tier receiver in the league and averages 90 yards per game throughout his entire career. And he's managed a high target share of 30.3 last season. The talent's still there. We know that. He had probably had the worst quarterback play in the entire league last year with J.J. McCarthy. He was completely horrible, and he averaged 11.8 points per game. But Jefferson still managed to get over 1,000 receiving yards. That shows how talented he is of a player. But now we're hoping Kyler Murray can start this season. That's the expectation as of now. And I would say that's a big upgrade from J.J. McCarthy. He gets his best receiver he's ever had in his career since DeAndre Hopkins. And Kevin O'Connell, as a head coach, is one of the best offensive play callers in the league. And I expect him to resurge Kyler's career. And I'm hoping that Jefferson can put together a solid season. And I would rank him 5 right now.
All right, our last player in tier A, we have Ceedee Lamb.
Coming in at 6 with Ceedee. Ceedee only had 14.3 points per game last season. He had that injury week 3 really hurt the rest of that season. But for this year, I feel like the floor is definitely very high. The upside is a little capped, though, with George Pickens. I know in 2023, he had about 400 fantasy points, which, I mean, the ceiling is there. That was without George Pickens, though. So now with George Pickens, I feel like he's not an S-tier receiver, but he's definitely in that A-tier, high-floor wide receivers.
All right, so our number 7 receiver starting off tier B, we have Drake London. And even with the QB question mark between Tua and Penix, London last year still had a 30.1% target share with Penix. And I wouldn't expect it to change much if Tua ended up the starter. And last year with Penix, London averaged 16.82 points per game, while Waddle only averaged 13.7 with Tua from weeks 4 to 15, while being the receiver one when Tyreek went down. But back in 2023, we did see Tyreek Hill average 23.5 points per game with Tua. I'm not saying that Drake London is the same player that Tyreek Hill was back in 2023, but Drake London is a hell of a receiver. And Tua has definitely gotten worse since that season, but it's very likely no matter who London's QB is, he will still be a top receiver in fantasy. And honestly, I do think he does have the upside to be a top 3 receiver.
Yeah, he's a guy that I can see as QB proof because he's produced with Ritter. He's produced with all these question mark quarterbacks, and the offense is going to get better with Kevin Stefanski coming in and bringing in his own staff. I think the offense it's going to be a way better called offense. And I think they're going to air the ball out a lot.
All right, number 8, we have AJ Brown.
A.J. Brown, finally, he got what he wanted. He got out of Philly, became a Patriot. But even in that last season in Philly, in a season where people said he looked terrible, he was able to average 14.69 fantasy points per game with Hurts as his quarterback. And now he gets a huge upgrade in Drake May. Diggs was able to put up 1,000 yards, and I didn't think Diggs was that good. I think a lot of what Diggs did was on May and McDaniels. But now I can imagine a healthy A.J. Brown with a great play caller. He wants to be here. He said on in an interview, this is the closest thing to heaven, referring about being in the Patriots uniform. I think A.J. Brown could be in a position to be the wide receiver one in all of fantasy with the upgrade at quarterback and the upgrade on the offense. I mean, he finished top 6 twice as a wide receiver in Philly. I really think that he can go even higher. I would put his floor. I might be too high on him, but I would put his floor as a top 7 wide receiver in all of fantasy this year at worst.
I think he's definitely going to be hungry like this. He was a Patriots fan when he was young. Like I think he's going to be hungry. He wants to be here. I don't think you're going to have to worry about him complaining or
Yeah.
anything too early on, at least. But I mean, remember that his first 2 years in Philly, he finished as a receiver 5 his first season. The receivers, or it might be swapped, but the receiver 6, and he really was great. And I think we'll see more of that here.
And he's back with this guy, Vrabel.
Exactly.
That's his guy, I'm excited for him.
All right, so our receiver 9 here is Rashee Rice.
So Rashee Rice at our wide receiver 9. This is without any off the field suspensions or if he's fully healthy. I mean, he's a PPR machine. We know what he is. We expect this of him. He averaged a little over 18 points last year, and I don't see him slowing down. So,
But I do have to say, there is definitely a possibility of Tyreek Hill signing midseason, which if I did draft Rashee, would just be a little bit in my mind. But we know Tyreek Hill's coming off a major injury. So even if he did come back to the Chiefs, like I wouldn't think he would take away much from Rashee, if anything.
yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't know about Tyreek Hill. That injury was just too tough.
It was
It's
brutal,
hard to
man.
really recover from that.
Especially this late in his career.
Yeah, he's turning 33, maybe 32.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, our 10th overall receiver, we have Nico Collins. And with Stroud having a down year last year, we saw his 17 points per game from 2023 and 2024. It dropped to 15 points per game last season. And with only having a 24.8% target share, when those targets aren't efficient and Stroud is not accurate, it's hard for him to really have that big of a ceiling when Stroud is really what hasn't been that good these last couple of years. He's in a contract year, Stroud, so hopefully he bounces back and he's aiming to do that.
Needs Stroud to play better, and I think he will. Like, I can't see Stroud being this bad again, especially in a contract year. And hopefully it can benefit. Nico could benefit from this.
Yeah, I feel like the run game is definitely going to be better this year. We've seen reports in camp saying that David Montgomery looks very good and could be in that workhorse role. I feel like that will also put the offense up a little bit. It'll make everyone play better, make Stroud play better. It will open up the deep targets for Nico now. Because last year, with that running game was just so inefficient that you couldn't really even throw the ball down the field, especially without Tank Dell. There was no really other target competition, I guess you can say, but there's only one solid receiver on the field, so all the defensive backs are gonna put their focus on Nico. So I feel like now with next year with Tank Dell back, a better running game, and Stroud just getting older and more experienced, Nico is gonna have a better year than last year.
Jaden Higgins was solid, I'll say that, towards the end of the season. But back to David Montgomery, I saw something today that he's open to a 3-down workhorse role in the offense, which would be awesome in our running back rankings video that'll be coming out soon.
Yeah, I'm very high on Demont. I mean, we know what he can do. In Detroit, he was an absolute dog, especially even as the RB2. I mean, he was so efficient. He scored all those touchdowns, So, I mean, this offense is going to be way better than last year.
And the Texans' offensive line, it also did improve, and it really cannot get any worse.
Yeah,
How it's been playing
line.
these last couple seasons.
Just watching the Texans every week. I mean, Stroud will be pressured in like less than 2 seconds. It was
brutal.
It's crazy.
11th overall receiver, we have George Pickens.
George Pickens finally had a massive breakout season in 2025. He went off for 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns. It looked like Pickens and Dak had great chemistry on the field, and he was great in the red zone throughout the season. He's playing on the franchise tag. They haven't given him a contract extension, which is why we believe he hasn't been at OTAs, which is something to monitor throughout the offseason. It could get interesting late, but right now we have him at 11. It can change if he doesn't keep showing up, I assume he shows up pretty soon, and I hope they work out a contract extension with him.
Yeah, if he doesn't start showing up or doesn't show up for training camp, really, it would hurt his value. It would move him down for me because, guys like Terry McLaurin and Brandon Ayuk, when they've done that, and even Ceedee Lamb back in 2024, when they've done that, they've had down seasons. Like it really is not a good situation to be in. But if he comes back, he should stay around the same area in this B tier.
Yep.
They really have slow starts. We've seen it before. It's more of a slow start, and it kind of hurts them as the season goes on. We've seen it a handful of times, and we really hope he gets on the field soon because the Cowboys need him, and we need him for our fantasy teams.
Just pay him, man. That's it. Pay the dude. He deserves all of it. So,
All right, we are starting off our C tier with Chris Olave.
Chris Olave had a very strong year last year. Finished as the wide receiver 8. Had great stats. Even with that quarterback room, it kept flip flopping. We saw Rattler and then we saw Shuck. He definitely was better with Shuck, and now with a full season of Tyler Shuck, I think he's gonna have a similar season. We do know that Jordan Tyson is now with the Saints, which is some target competition, but he's still a great player. The only concern with us is his concussions. We know he has 4 in his career, so if he gets one, that'll probably knock him out for multiple weeks. And if it's serious enough, maybe even the whole season. So Olave, he's at our wide receiver 12.
And back to Olave, he's still dealing with the blood clot he had last season that punched him out week 18. So that's something to monitor as camp goes on. But he's expected to take the field soon.
All right, our receiver 13, we got Devonta Smith, and Smitty is now the receiver 1 for this Eagles offense for the first time since his rookie season back in 2021. And since 2022, actually, Smitty has averaged 14 points per game in that span, and he will now take on a much bigger role in this Eagles offense. Hurts is still a very questionable quarterback, which definitely holds back his upside, as I don't really see him being like a top 5 guy, because I don't think Hurts can really do that with him, because I think with A.J. Brown, he was a guy that can go catch the ball no matter where it really is placed, compared to where I think Smitty's more of a guy that's over the middle and like is going to be open. But he can definitely still put up low end receiver 1 numbers for you.
Agreed.
Yeah, Smitty's more of that like design target instead of AJ's just throw it up there. So Smitty with those design targets is going to have a lot of receptions and have a big year.
At receiver 14 here, we got Garrett Wilson.
Wilson, through weeks 1 through 6 while healthy, averaged 16.6 points per game and would have been the wide receiver 10 with those numbers. But because of an injury, his year was cut short and only played half of a game after week 6. It kind of hurt him. The PCL really was a lingering injury. We saw what happened to Brock Bowers last season as well. But he wound up coming back as well. But Garrett Wilson, it didn't help him. He kept re-injuring it. But now with no new injury history right now, and Geno Smith is his quarterback, who had a bad season with the Raiders, but also was very solid with JSN in 2024. From weeks 9 through 18, he averaged 19.8 points per game, was the wide receiver 8. Now for Wilson, I expect a bounce-back season with the possibility of a big breakout year, because I think Geno Smith is a solid passing quarterback for fantasy purposes. Yeah, he threw the most interceptions in the league last season, but Geno Smith isn't afraid to air it out. And if I invest in Garrett Wilson, I want his quarterback to air it out. It's more points for us. It's more wins for us.
Yeah, Geno's going to sling it, and this Jets team, they should be down in most games, I'd say. So I think it's a much better situation than it was last year with Fields.
And back to Garrett Wilson, he would have been the wide receiver 10 through weeks 1 through 6 with Justin Fields. And Justin Fields is one of the worst passing quarterbacks in the league last season.
Mm-hmm. Our receiver 15 here, we got T. Higgins.
T. Higgins, the main problem, as we all know, his injury history. T. Higgins has missed about 4 games per season in the last 3 years. It's a thing with the Bengals. You know, T. Higgins gets hurts him obviously, and then when Burrow's hurt, it's going to hurt him too. So, his ceiling though is super high. You know the talent he has. He's one of the best jump ball receivers in the league, one of the best receivers in the league. So if he's healthy, if Burrow's healthy, he could definitely finish above wide receiver 15.
Yeah, and in Higgins' last 2 seasons with the fully healthy Joe Burrow, he's averaged 18.3 points per game in all those games. And even with Flacco last year, he averaged 16.8 points per game with Flacco QB. So I do think that my only really scare, which is why he's lower, is just because of the injury history. It's not something I want to deal with throughout the season.
if you can get him as your wide receiver 2, I think I'd be confident in that, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's a solid 2. I wouldn't rely on him to be my 1, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind taking him at 2. I'm not the
Yeah.
highest on T. Higgins, but a wide receiver 2 is fine.
Okay, finishing off our C tier, we got Tetairoa McMillan as our receiver 16. And last year he won Rookie of the Year, but he only averaged 12.4 points per game doing that. I just think the rookie class was very, very weak last year. But I do expect somewhat of a year 2 jump out of him. But what stops me from putting him any higher is I don't believe Bryce Young is capable to be able to bring him to a top 12 finish. As Young last year, he only had 4 games where he threw for 200 plus yards or more. So I just really do think Ted's ceiling is capped because I don't trust Bryce Young at all. And I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. And honestly, their defense was pretty solid last year. Like they were in a lot of close games. They weren't behind chucking the ball a lot. And there were a couple games where Young had over 300 passing yards. So if Young could be an average 200-yard passer, I mean, it would definitely help Tet a lot more than perform a lot better than he did last year.
Yeah, as we've been watching the Panthers, we're kind of just waiting on the breakout for Bryce Young. Like we've seen flashes. We've seen the games where we ended 2024. We watched all of 2025 season. We watched them come in and beat the Rams. I mean, you get the flashes, but you need the consistency. And I don't really know if we're going to ever see that consistency out of Bryce Young. But if we could get somewhere close to that, and hopefully it can benefit Ted, and Ted makes a better year 2 jump, 16 would be low for Ted. But we have to keep him at 16 because of Bryce Young.
All right, our receiver 17 here. Starting off the D tier, we got Zay Flowers.
Flowers quietly averaged 14.3 points per game and finishes the wide receiver 13. Very quietly. Flowers has a great floor. He's a good floor wide receiver. He just lacks the touchdown upside because he's never used in the red zone. Because why would he? Because Flowers has never had a season over 5 touchdowns, even back in 2024 when Lamar threw 41 touchdowns. Flowers only caught 4 TDs that season. In the red zone, the Ravens have guys like Mark Andrews, Derrick Henry, and Lamar himself. It really caps his touchdown upside. But as a solid wide receiver too, because Zay Flowers will have he'll have some boom games in him. He'll go over 100 yards a lot. He's quietly one of the better receivers in football.
I mean, yeah, I just think Flowers' only problem is that he just scores no touchdowns. Like that's really the only worry with me, and that's why his ceiling is really just not high at all. I know last year he finished there as a receiver 13, as you said, but he just really doesn't have that top 12 upside because he scores no touchdowns. I mean, like we said, in that Lamar season when he threw 41, he only had 4, and he really isn't used there. I mean, why would he be? He's like 5'9", 5'10", so it really just caps his ceiling, and that's why he gets a lot of receptions, which he has a good floor as a receiver too, but just don't expect a top 12 finish from him.
Yeah, he definitely has one of the highest floors in the NFL. That ceiling is obviously capped, but that floor is so safe. So,
all right, at receiver 18, we have Emeka Egbuka.
So Egbuka had one of the best stretches for a rookie in the first couple weeks of the season. I think he averaged about a little over 17 points. We saw the flashes with him. Him and Baker had a great connection. And now with Mike Evans to San Francisco, Emeka Egbuka can have something like that, a longer stretch of that 17 plus points per game. I mean, yeah, he's just in store for another solid sophomore season.
And he also dealt with the hamstring injury. I don't know if you talked about that. You might have. But after the hamstring injury, his season was pretty much over. There was games where he wasn't really playing at all because Jalen McMillan was used over him when he came back. And I was a little scared for Egbuka down the road, but now they lost Mike Evans. I really think that he can take another jump, like we saw through weeks 1 through 6. Not to get back to that point, but somewhere under that is where I expect Egbuka to play. I kind of expect him to be in that 13, 14-point range because we've seen what he can do before, and the offense, it's going to be solid depending on how Baker plays.
At a receiver 19, we got Lad McConkey, and after a monster rookie year where he averaged 15.1 points per game, he had a sophomore year slump, averaging only 11.3 points per game and finished as a receiver 37. But I think with the new addition of OC Mike McDaniels and the Chargers O-line getting healthy with Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater coming back, I expect this offense to be one of the best in the league. And I think it will help Lad come back and have a bounce-back season and look more like he did in his rookie year. All right, at 20 overall receiver, we have Davante Adams.
Adams finishes the wide receiver 9 last season, averaging 15.9 points per game. And the offense stayed exactly the same. They didn't add anyone. They didn't lose anyone. Stafford loves Adams in the red zone. As we saw, he had led the league with 32 red zone targets and had 14 touchdowns. Yes, Adams is now older at the age of 33. And we saw last season he picked up a hamstring injury, which hampered him. As long as this isn't a problem in the future, he's a safe pick with the chance to repeat what he did last season. When Adams finishes the wide receiver 9, he also missed the entire fantasy playoffs, except for the first week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you played the game versus the Lions, and that was.
He played the game versus the Lions, and he could have finished even higher. But I think it's a safe pick if healthy.
And this offense is just so great. And as long as Stafford's healthy, I mean, it should be a great. It's going to be one of the best offenses.
If the red zone targets stay the same, you're going to be happy.
They're very. Our receiver 21 overall, we have Jaylen Waddle.
Waddle in his new situation with Denver. We see Courtland Sutton still there, which I think he's getting a little underrated this year. But Jaylen Waddle in a new situation. We know how good the Broncos are. We know how good Bo Nix is. And I think he's just going to have a great season, New situation, better quarterback. Yeah.
And they gave up a lot of draft capital to acquire him. They're not going to give up a lot of draft capital not to use him.
Yeah, they gave up a first and third. That's a lot.
There's a lot. Wide receiver 1, easily. Sutton will be the guy that takes the red zone targets away, but he's going to be Bo Nix's go-to option and the wide receiver 1 in this offense.
All right, our receiver 22, we got Terry McLaurin, and after a very injury-riddled season for the Commanders in 2025, they look to come back healthy. And the last time we saw them healthy in 2024, Daniels and Terry were one of the best duos in the league, I'd say, as McLaurin was able to average 15.9 points per game in that season. And with the new OC, David Blau, already saying that McLaurin needs 10-plus targets a game, if Daniels and Terry can stay healthy, I expect him to get back to his 2020 form. All right, starting off our F tier now, we got Luther Burden.
Burden had 2.78 yards per route run last season, and now the Bears traded away DJ Moore and lost Olave Zaccheaus in free agency. He'll now be used in 2 wide receiver sets, and we hope that Caleb could take another jump in year 3 in his second season under Ben Johnson. The only issue with him is he wasn't able to beat Zaccheaus last season for the slot role, which makes me curious to how good the Bears really think he is. But we saw a lot of flashes from him last season. He had a lot of big boom games in a way, and looked like Caleb preferred him over Rome, because Rome didn't have that great of a season. And I think Burden is this Bears wide receiver 1. We'll see as training camp progresses, but I think he's the man right now in this offense.
Yeah, after that stretch of Rome Odunze at the beginning of the season, after that, I mean, he was nothing. He was kind of like the wide receiver 3 in that offense, and this really wasn't used at all. So I feel like Burden is definitely going to be used more than him in 2026.
This was the guy that was projected to be a first-round pick in 2020, in the 2025 draft, and he fell down to the second round, and Ben Johnson and the Bears scooped him up right away. We know the talent we have here.
I also do feel like neither Rome or Burden are the receiver 1 options or the number 1 options. I think Loveland is still the number 1 receiving option on this team. But I do think Burden, if he is in that slot role, he's going to be in 2 receiver sets now, as you said. I do think he's going to definitely have a year 2 jump here.
Yep, I agree.
And our last receiver here, we got Jameson Williams to finish off F tier.
Well, Jameson Williams, we know who he is. He's the boomer bust king. I mean, this guy can either go for 0 or 20 every week. You know what I mean? And so we saw last year, coming out of the bye week, it was very clear the Lions wanted to get J-Mo more involved. Especially with Dan Campbell calling the offense now. And only in weeks 1 through 7, he only averaged about 8 points per game. And then in weeks 9 through 18, he averaged a little over 16 points a game. So now with the new OC, maybe things can stay the same, maybe. But, he's in that low-end wide receiver 2 position for us.
Yeah, and there is no Laporta also from that week 11 onward, which also kind of skews his points per game a little bit, because there's obviously more target competition than with Laporta healthy, and I just don't think he's going to be able to consistently put up double-digit points for you just because there's so many mouths to feed on that offense.
Yeah.
And we have Malik Nabers here, who would be somewhere in this B tier if he was healthy, but with the possibility or even the likeliness of him starting the season off on the pup, he just wouldn't be in our top 24 if that is the case.
There's just too much uncertainty here. We're going to leave it towards the end. We're going to leave it towards the. We're going to wait for mini camp. We're going to wait for training camp. But right now, we're assuming he starts on the PUP list. So that's why he falls into the B category.
We know his talent, and this Giants offense is only going to get better. So, and especially with Dart coming in his sophomore season. So, if he's on the field, he's definitely a wide receiver one. So
He's outside our top 24, but the hope is he gets in the top 24 when he's healthy.
for sure.
Hope you guys enjoyed our top 24 wide receiver rankings. Our running back rankings will be up next video. Like, subscribe, and we'll keep pushing out some fantasy content for you guys.
Like and
Let's go.
subscribe.